Whether it's your first time renting in Singapore or you have been a tenant for many years, you will find many useful takeaways in this video that can make life much easier for you as a tenant. Have you been ignored by agents when sending inquiries? How do you avoid that? Or do you own a pet? How can you increase the chances of securing a place to rent? And how do you prevent yourself from getting scammed? All this and more in the first episode of this series. Welcome to my channel. My name is William and I'm a licensed real estate agent based in Singapore. Today I'll be sharing with you the process of renting a property in Singapore and some practical tips for tenants based on real life experiences from my day-to-day dealings with tenants and landlords alike. If you have an agent helping you in the process, it wouldn't hurt to have a second opinion on this, or would it? If you're engaging an agent to help you with your search, the market rate of commission will be 1 month's rent for 2 years contract. The scope of the agent's duty is to assist you to secure a unit that meets your requirements and advise you every step along the way until you take over the unit. Especially if you're new to Singapore, engaging an agent for your search would be advisable because of the local knowledge that he or she can provide, such as where are the red light districts, what is the typical profile of residents in a particular area, and administrative matters such as how to apply for utilities and which internet service providers are recommended. Now, before we start our journey, let's first ascertain if you are eligible to rent a property in Singapore. As long as you are not a permanent resident or Singapore citizen, whether you are from Malaysia, India, the UK,
or if you are from Tatooine,
or any other countries and planets, you will need to have a valid pass to rent a property in Singapore. The definition of a valid pass includes an employment pass, S-pass, work permit, student pass, or dependent pass. If you're here on a tourist visa, you will not be allowed to rent from individuals, and your only option will be hotels, service apartments, and hostels. Now, assuming you're not a tourist, how do you start your journey? There are typically 5 major steps in the whole process: the search, viewing, offer, documentation, and handover. In this video, we will cover the first 2 major steps of your rental journey. First of all, you can start your search in some of the popular portals such as Property Guru, 99.co, and SRX. If you stick to these 3 portals, it's hard to go wrong, and you dramatically reduce the risk of getting scammed. Recently, there have been scammers who impersonate agents. This is the website of Singapore Police Force. As you can see, already more than 997 victims have fallen prey to such scams in 2022. That's an incredible amount of almost 3 a day. You can easily avoid being the next victim. The typical trick that a scammer uses is to ask prospective tenants to place a refundable deposit before they can even view a property. And not surprisingly, the agent will no longer be contactable after the deposit is transferred. And the victim will try to go after the impersonated agent who has no clue about what happened. But when you rely on the earlier mentioned 3 portals for your search, you have certain assurance that you are dealing with licensed agents, as these portals only allow licensed agents to post listings there. A licensed agent is very unlikely to scam you, as they will be caught easily and they will lose their licenses. So please avoid looking for places to rent on places like Facebook or forums if you don't want to be scammed. At the time of this shooting, amongst the 3 portals that I mentioned, Property Guru is the most popular platform for listings. I would say it's the Google equivalent for property listings, and 99.co is probably a distant second, like a Yahoo search engine. From experience, more than 90% of my inquiries from my listings come from Property Guru. It's pretty easy to use, and you will find more options here than in any other portals. Now that you're starting your search, how do you decide on your lease tenor? On paper, local regulations allow minimum 3 months lease for private properties and 6 months lease for public housing, also known as HDB flats. So if you intend to rent for less than 3 months, you won't be able to do so legally, and you should seek places like a hotel, service apartments, or a hostel. If you manage to find something on Airbnb that's available for less than 3 months, and if the landlord is an individual, you need to be aware that he or she is attempting to rent his or her property illegally and proceed at your own risk. Earlier, I've mentioned about the ability to rent HDB flats, which are public housing in Singapore, and the owners of such properties are actually taking long-term leases from the government. But they are allowed to sublet the properties to tenants like yourself, subject to certain terms and conditions. What to look out for when renting HDB flats will be a topic for another day, and stay tuned for that in the description below. I digress. In the current red hot rental market, securing a 1-year lease is already a huge challenge, as most owners prefer a 2-year lease. That's because it's market practice to receive 1 month's deposit for a 1-year rental and 2 months deposit for a 2-year rental. If you're looking for a shorter term lease, you'll probably find more options in renting rooms instead of a whole unit. There are many co-living operators out there who sublet individual rooms, but whether it's a room rental or whole unit rental, you'll be able to find both options in the above mentioned portals. If you intend to stay long-term in Singapore, my advice is to lock in a 2-year lease so that you have more available options to choose from, and it saves you the hassle of moving after only 1 year. I know you might be thinking, you're new to Singapore and it's better to start with a 1 year and later extend the lease if you're happy with the unit, and that's a very prudent thing to do. But if you have been losing many opportunities because of this, you may wish to reconsider the 1-year preference. What if you lose your job and you need to leave after 1 year? The last thing you need is to have to pay for the remaining lease when you're even not allowed to continue working in Singapore. That is when you need to have a diplomatic clause which allows you to terminate the tenancy early to cater for such scenarios. This is a topic for another day as well, and stay tuned for that in the description below. After you have shortlisted suitable units that fit your wants and needs, you can then contact the landlord's agent to set up an appointment to view the property. In most cases, the agent will ask you for your profile. If you don't understand what that means, I will show you some examples shortly. The landlord agent will almost always want to know your profile because landlords often have in mind what kind of tenants they prefer to rent their properties to. If you have been trying to look for units to rent, you might have encountered many agents who don't even bother to reply you. And you think that that's very rude. Sometimes it's because the unit's very popular and the agent receives dozens of enquiries per day. They may have simply missed your message or could not cope with the number of enquiries that are coming in. So let's just do a test. Imagine you are a landlord's agent who receives 20 enquiries per day, and these are the 3 of the many enquiries that you receive. Which one are you more likely to reply to? So here's tip number 1. Rather than wait for the landlord agent to ask, you can simply copy and paste a nicely written profile of yours, like those that I've shown you earlier, once you submit an enquiry. Niceties are nice, but can get very tiring after going through the 10th enquiry, both for yourself and for the landlord's agent. By sending your profile on the onset, you're more likely to get a response than otherwise. And here's tip number 2. You may also request for a video of the unit if it's not already there in the listing. Some owners prefer not to have a video of their place readily accessible on the internet, and they may instruct their agents to only send videos upon request. Having a video first can save you some time because if you can tell that you don't like the unit without having to see it physically, you can simply move on to your next option. Next, if you are a pet owner, no matter how cute your pet is, the unfortunate thing is that it works against you as a tenant in Singapore in many cases. Many landlords prefer not to rent to tenants who keep pets because of the perceived risk of damage to their property. Not only that, if you decide to rent a HDB flat, residents are not legally allowed to keep cats in a flat, and only certain breeds of dogs are allowed to be kept. More information on that in the description below. Hence, if you have a pet, do expect more rejections when you declare this to the landlord's agent. Now, you might be thinking, what if I simply stay silent about pets? Well, if you do so, you'll be taking several risks. First and foremost, you might have placed a deposit to secure the unit, and when you progress to negotiate the tenancy agreement, it will almost always state by default that no pets are allowed, without express consent from the landlord, of course. If you are dealing with a difficult landlord, he or she may no longer wish to rent the property to you after discovering your intent to keep a pet and simply forfeit your deposit. That will be a very terrible position to find yourself in. Then you might think, you can simply keep the pet a secret and hope that nobody ever finds out. But I will advise against that because it's a matter of time when your lease will end, and towards the end of your lease, the landlord agent will almost surely arrange for viewings for new prospective tenants. And if the landlord discovers that you've been keeping pets behind his back, your security deposit would definitely be at risk. So if you decide to search for pet-friendly listings, here's tip number 3. On Property Guru, there's no indicator that lets you filter for pets at the moment, but this is what you can do to filter out for pet-friendly listings.
Over here, we're going to use Property Guru as an example, and we're using the web-based version. Make sure you click on Rent, and then select your district, and then click on Search. So you can use the filter however you want. You can change the price, the bedrooms, etc. And here's what you should put: pet friendly in the keywords portion. And click on Apply Filter, and you can see based on your search criteria, there's only one listing that matches. Click on it, and if you click Read More, you see pet friendly is one of the keywords, which is why this search result appeared.
It's not 100% watertight, and there would be some landlords who are okay with pets, but the listing doesn't state pet friendly. But this would be a quick and easy way to filter out something suitable for you. Do you find the content useful so far? If that's a yes, please take 3 seconds to hit the like and subscribe button before we continue to the next section. Alright, now you have shortlisted a few properties, the next logical thing to do is to view the physical unit. Now this boils down to personal preference to a big extent, but there are some factors at play in Singapore that may work differently from the country that you come from. One important example is the sun's path. While the sun tends to rise from the east and sets in the west, it rarely moves in a straightforward east-west direction. In countries in the northern hemisphere like Europe or China, the sun is positioned most of the time between southeast and southwest during the day across the year. Basically, that means if you're in UK, rooms facing north will get little sunlight compared to those facing south. And in the dark and gloomy London weather, you might prefer a unit with south-facing rooms. However, in Singapore, things are a little different. As Singapore is near the equator, the sun moves very differently. For example, around June, the sun travels from northeast to northwest. Around March and September, the sun travels east to west. And around December, the sun travels from southeast to southwest. In short, the sun hangs around the almost equal amount of time between north and south across the year, which means there isn't much difference between a north-facing room and a south-facing room. Given that we have summer heat all year round in Singapore, what most people prefer is to avoid direct heat from the morning or afternoon sun. So here's tip number 5 for you. If you're concerned about the heat that the unit's going to get, a north-south orientation would be preferred. Other than the orientation of the place, you should also check out the surroundings of the unit. Are there any construction going on? How many neighbors do you have? Do they clutter the common areas? Does the property have the facilities that you want, such as a lap pool or a good-sized gym? These are important factors to check when you're at the physical viewing. Once you're inside the unit, be sure to check for signs of leakages, molding, and any signs of structural damages. Also take note if the living room and all bedrooms are air-conditioned, if that is important for you. If you prefer to have certain fixtures installed such as ceiling fans, you can always discuss this with the landlord's agent if the landlord is willing to provide, and you could split the cost of installation for that as well. Tip number 6, while you're viewing the property, take the opportunity to talk to the landlord's agent as well. If he or she appears aloof or unhelpful even before closing the deal, it's a red flag because if things go wrong during the tenancy, you can be very sure that the support that you're going to get is less than ideal. Trust me, I have represented tenants and dealt with agents who are so painful to work with that I'd rather pluck out my toenails. If you wish to avoid going through the same pain, don't just assess the property, assess the landlord's agent face to face as well. Let's say you have found a place you really like and would like to put up an offer. How should you go about doing it? In my next episode, I will cover how to put up an offer without taking unnecessary risk and what are the standard clauses and market practice in tenancy agreements so that you know you are not getting shortchanged by your landlord. Do you learn something new today from this video? Comment below if you have any more specific questions on this topic and share with me what did you find most useful in today's video. If you would like to receive more tips and real estate updates, smash the like button and subscribe button below and ping that notification bell. My name is William, and I'll see you in my next episode.